I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with Ajiri Tea. Ajiri Tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello, and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human.
Yeah.
Cool. So I love when I get to just actually meet people and hear their whole story. So I'll just start off with just tell me about your story. Tell me where you grew up and just kind of fill me in on your life.
Yeah. So that's a very open-ended question.
Yep.
But I guess, what brings us here, you and me, is the connection with the tea.
Yes.
And a large part of that is working with my family. And so I can kind of, not to make this too business-like, but I can kind of give you the story of Ajiri Tea.
Perfect.
Which is probably, more interesting than growing up in rural Pennsylvania. So Ajiri Tea, we started in 2008, 2009, kind of at the height of the global financial crisis, which is a funny time to start a business. But it really was in reaction to the loss of funding for NGOs in Kenya.
Okay.
And so my sister had been volunteering in Kenya in 2008, 2009 for an NGO that was handing out food and drugs to people with HIV and AIDS. And an NGO is a non-governmental organization, right? So think of volunteers. So she was handing out food and drugs to people with HIV and AIDS. And seemingly overnight in that financial crisis, which today seems like so far away as we're dealing with impeachment today, right?
Yeah.
In 2021. But at the time, that was a really big deal. And the funding just overnight stopped, and all these people were reliant on these food and drugs. And Sarah had to say, sorry, we're out. And I had gone to Kenya at that time to visit her. I was 19, totally didn't know what I was doing, just was having fun in Kenya.
Sure.
We said, well, what can we do to create something more sustainable? Because handouts clearly aren't working. And maybe that's actually doing more harm than good, having these kind of Western NGOs working in Kenya. Maybe it's creating a reliance, like this own kind of sub-economy.
Yeah.
Like what can we do to create, I guess, employment? Like that's what really people wanted, was employment.
Sure.
And so we looked around and there was tons of tea, this kind of like bright green crop that's seemingly everywhere in Kisii. It's just such a vibrant color, tea. And so we said, we don't know a lot about tea, but maybe we could export tea to the US, where there's this burgeoning, fancy market of natural foods, right? Where people don't even think about spending $9 on a box of tea at Whole Foods, right? Like 2008, 2009 was when like kombucha and whole grains and like people were really getting into that movement of organic, and it was just taking off. And so we said, we think that we could capitalize on that, and so we'll export tea and we'll but we should really do more than that. We should try to employ people who really need it, and not just tea farmers, because, they already have access to at least land. And so we thought of employing women. Women own less than 1% of land in sub-Saharan Africa.
Wow.
And at the time, there was something like 90% unemployment amongst women in Kenya.
Oh, man.
And so we said, let's focus on employing women, because women tend to reinvest their earnings back into their families. And we connected with some local self-help groups, and that we've kind of added to over the years. And so now we employ 60 women to hand make all the packaging. And then we asked the women, we said, where should the profits go back, right? Like, the tea's coming from Kenya, the packaging is coming from Kenya. It only makes sense that the money go back to Kenya. And the women and the tea farmers, they both said, you really should send the money back for orphan education, because in Kenya, school costs money. Like, secondary school runs anywhere between $500 to $1,500 a year. And so we send 100% of our profits back to pay school fees and living supplies for orphans in the region. But all of this that I'm talking about, this has taken like 10 years to get, to get down and to get going. And it sounds really easy, but it's like, it's taken us a while to get to where we are.
Yeah. And I remember my partner and we were driving through, pretty sure it was Vermont. We were somewhere in the Northeast, and that I was drawn to the box first off. I just saw it, and I'm one of those people that doesn't blink an eye at spending money on tea, because I love tea. And I'd never seen it before, and I was like, oh, what is this? This is really neat. And then I flipped it over and I read the back, and I was just like, wow, this is incredible. Like, it was such a beautiful story with the artwork that's made by the women down there as well. So of course I was like, well, hell yeah, I'm going to try this, and check it out. And I love it. I absolutely love the tea. So anytime I see
Thanks,
it, I
Nick.
always get it.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. And this part of this is like, we try and stay true to our mission through and through. And I guess staying true to our mission is like, we try and do the right thing through and through. And part of that right thing is sticking to our values. And so we don't run Facebook ads, and we don't run digital marketing campaigns. And so we rely so heavily on word of mouth, and find that, like-minded people will share Ajiri Tea, and that's how we'll grow. And it's working. It's working slowly.
That's so cool. Yeah. I love that it's that you're doing it kind of like an old school street team did for music. You're just kind of like word of mouth, like hand out CDs, like put it out there, kind of deal.
Oh, totally. Because we want this to be something that people buy because they like what we're doing, and not to buy it because it's perhaps like an impulse or a waste of money, or like it comes up on your feed and,
sure,
and you're kind of inundated with products, because like at the end of the day, that's not really sustainable either.
Right.
But it's an evolution of thought to get to where I just said, but yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely know that just seeing random shit pop up, it's like, oh, okay, well, what's this? Are you walking?
I didn't need this, but maybe I want it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like it. I like that it's, more organic. And like I said, I just saw it, and I like the artwork is so beautiful. So how do you, I know the women do it. How do you, how does it get from the women making the artwork to the packages and all of that?
Yeah. And that is a truly a long, process. So the women, I can kind of start. So the women make these labels for our tea boxes, and it's all made in the tea box. The label's kind of framed on the tea box, so you can see it on the shelf. Because this is a podcast, so people can't see it. And so the actual paper that the label is made using recycled office paper. and water hyacinth, which is an invasive weed on Lake Victoria, the largest freshwater lake in Africa. And this water hyacinth is just crazy and has huge ecological problems. But Mike, a man that we've been working with for 10 years, goes out into the lake, collects this invasive weed, mushes it together or macerates it with recycled office paper, and then dries it on these wooden frames in the really hot Kenyan sun. And then the paper dries. We cut it up and distribute it to 60 women. And then they take dried banana bark. And if you've ever seen a banana tree, the bark kind of naturally peels off of it.
Yeah.
It's not like a birch tree that also peels. Banana bark is just, the bark's almost like constantly peeling off of a tree. And so they'll take that banana bark, they'll dry it in the sun, and then they'll take a razor blade and cut out designs and glue it onto this paper. And then those labels are sent to us here in the U.S., where the whole thing is assembled. So the tea comes from Kenya, the labels come from Kenya, and then the actual cardboard is made in Pennsylvania. So we're trying to get as much of local production as we can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Man, what a process. That's so beautiful. I love that it's like, okay, we'll get this invasive species out, but we'll use it for something that is creating so much beauty. And I'm just like, I know it's a podcast, but I can see the smile on your face when you're talking about this. So like, it has to be so amazing to see it, for like, to know these women who are making these and then see what they create with what they have surrounding them, with all these elements that are in Kenya with them. And then they show up here and they're just beautiful works of art.
Yeah, it is truly a labor of love. But I think, when we started, we needed something kind of low cost, entry for these women, and something that would be not hard to get. So like, it couldn't be artwork with paint because, the paint might not be in the shipment this month in Kisii. So we had to look around and find something, a resource that would always be there. And bananas are just so ubiquitous to Kisii. If you think of Kisii, it's the land of the bananas and the land of tea. So
that's so cool. So when you were going down there for the first time, like, I imagine it was far different than anywhere you'd been before. So just kind of describe like your feeling as you get there and like exploring Kenya.
Yeah, I was 19, and I think that is such a pivotal point, right? Like you're an adult, you're technically an adult, but in a lot of ways you're a child.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like now that I'm 31 and I look back on myself at 19, I'm like, wow, I was just so young. I don't know if I felt that way when I was 19.
Right.
But I just remember I think that going there so young really has changed my outlook on a lot of things. Patience, kindness, humility, the ability to connect with people. I hope that my little 5-month-old upstairs gets a chance to go to Kenya, as soon as he can. But I just remember, getting off the plane. It was so hot. Like in Nairobi, it just smelled different. And a family friend picked me up in the car. My mom has studied in Kenya in the 70s, and her homestay brother had picked me up from the airport. And, we almost hit a zebra driving home from the airport. And I was like, this is crazy. And that has never happened again. The zebra just escaped from like Nairobi National Park right there.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't happen ever in Kenya. Like that was like a fluke. But I was like, wow, we're in Kenya. And then we went out to, I think, Chinese food. That was the best Chinese food I've ever had. And it was in a fancier restaurant than I had ever been. And like, that's Nairobi.
Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing.
And then just going out to Kisii, the contrast between Nairobi, which is really a metropolitan, bustling city, kind of like as you would expect a city to be. You can kind of find anything in Nairobi, to driving west, dropping down through the Rift Valley. So Nairobi kind of sits on this plateau, which is why it's a city, because malaria technically was never in Nairobi because it was so high up
Oh,
for the
wow.
mosquitoes. And so you kind of drop down into the Rift Valley, which is this really dry, expansive valley that runs basically all the way up to Egypt. And you kind of cross through the Rift Valley, and then you come to and through the Masai Mara, which is this large national park that you've probably heard of, and then you end up in Kisii, and these rolling, lush green hills, and it's known as the land of the cooking pots, Nansiongo, where we source our tea, because they look like all upside down cooking pots um, everywhere. So just tons of hills, and it rains every day, and it's the soil is so red that it just kind of clay like that it just sticks to your shoes.
Yeah.
And you wonder how the heck everyone's homes are so clean if there's like this, there's a red soil everywhere. But yeah, I mean, just the difference of landscape, the difference of language. But there is that kind of connection that I found in Kenya. You know, they say people are nice everywhere you go in the world, but I think that Kenyans are particularly nice, and hospitable, and um, just really friendly.
Yeah, and I love that. I love hearing people's stories, especially when they travel to or are from Africa, and it's just so different. And I love there's so many different, obviously, regions and everything in that massive continent and countries, and it's just so fun to hear all the different aspects of it. Like I have a friend who grew up in Zimbabwe, and I spoke to him like a few weeks ago and hearing about Zimbabwe. And then, I just love learning about cultures and new countries and everything. And I can't even imagine. I didn't leave the country until I was well into my 20s. So I can't even imagine me at 19 going to Africa and seeing a zebra. I probably would have been like, well, that's it. There's just going to be zebras running around all over.
I'm like, I just remember getting to Kisii, and my sister had been, there for a year at that point, and had already spent 6 months in college studying there. And she had to work, and she was like, "Oh yeah, just go for a walk down the street." And like Kisii in 2008 was a very different place. Like women only wore skirts. Now everyone's wearing like tight jeans there. There weren't tons of motorbikes because they hadn't been imported yet from China, like these cheap motorbikes. So people were riding bicycles, and it was just a really like the internet in 2008 wasn't like, I mean, you remember like Facebook wasn't really even a
Right.
thing. And I just remember walking down the street the first day I was there and being so overwhelmed, and being so like people were coming up to me and touching my hair and saying hi, and like there wasn't another white person around anywhere, and there still isn't really in Kisii, but I was just like, this is like, where am I?
Sure.
Like I'm totally like I just didn't know. I didn't know, and now it's like, how could I have ever been so nervous or so timid or so, I don't know. Like now when I walk around Kisii, I'm always see people I know, and it feels so familiar, and it kind of feels like I'm just going to New Jersey, from Pennsylvania. It seems like I'm
Right.
going to New Jersey. But at the time, it just felt so different.
Yeah. Well, I love that too, that now that you've been going there for a decade, that you feel like it's almost like a second home, or just another natural place to be. And to so many people, it's so different can't even fathom going to a place like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that is like, it's really fun to go back to the same place year after year and to really form meaningful connections with people. Like, not just like, hey, I'm here for a week visiting, like, what's your favorite restaurant? But to kind of make real friends. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. So you said like the language. What is the language that is spoken?
Yeah, so in Kenya has, I'm going to mess this up, but I don't know how many languages they have. Um, so every kind of tribe has a different language, and in the unifying language in Kenya is Swahili and English.
Okay.
But in Kisii, they speak Kisii.
All right.
So it's a completely different language. Also Bantu, so like similar to Swahili.
Okay.
So you can kind of get some words. But it's totally different. And I don't even know if there's a Kisii dictionary. So that has been really hard to pick up, I will say.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was if you had picked up anything.
I really wish I have. But I am embarrassed to say I haven't. I mean, like, enough to get by. My sister, on the other hand, who has spent a year continuously in Kisii, it's like she's decent in it, but she'll resort back to Swahili, which is a pretty easy language to learn, or English, because in Kenya, secondary school and parts of primary school are all in English.
Oh, okay. Okay. So do you speak some Swahili then?
Kidogo, so very little. Yeah, enough to like communicate if I have a question, but I'll communicate to our colleagues in Kenya in English.
Okay.
I mean, I think their first language was English.
Yeah. I mean, that is one benefit for all of us who speak English, is that it is one of the unifying languages of the world. I've had so many times where I'm in another country and I'm just like, I'm really thankful that somebody else speaks English as a second or third or fourth or like
I
15th
know.
language.
Gosh, as an American, you're like, oh my gosh, how do we not speak more than one language? But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you're like, what were we doing?
Yeah. I've always said, like, I don't regret anything about my life, but if I could go back and just like put a little bit of knowledge into a young Nick, I would say, dude, just love languages, man. Like, forget about sports, forget about this. Like, just learn languages, become a language nerd. Just
Yeah.
it'll take you far more places in life than all these other useless bits of knowledge that you picked up along the way.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. The ability to connect with people. And then you find that like language aside, you're always able to communicate with people, maybe not on a deeper level, but like humor is kind of universal. You know,
Yeah.
miming can get you really far.
Yes, or at least get a laugh
Yeah.
if they don't understand.
A smile like mostly is a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, there was one night in Denmark when I lived there for like 2 months, and there was just one night where I was trying to order a pizza. I got back to the village I was living in late, and the guy just was like looking at me like I was speaking Chinese, but I was speaking English, and I'm in a little village in Denmark, and so I pointed at something and he still gave me this look, and I was kind of like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know your language. You apparently don't know mine. And so I turned around and I went to leave, and this man just started cracking up laughing. And he was like, I know English. Like, I just wanted to see your reaction. And I felt like this small at that moment,
Yeah.
and I was like,
So,
I think a lot of people would actually benefit from feeling that way, of like,
yeah.
because I'm
I
not,
do, yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's very true. I was actually kind of a language nerd.
Mm,
Never African languages though, because they were never offered, right, in
sure.
school or college. But I find having, learned Arabic and French and Spanish, that Americans are actually very sympathetic listeners when it
Mm,
comes to people speaking English, um, not as their first language. If you don't speak something perfectly in French, they'll correct you, right? Or they'll like stop the
yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
or it's stilted a bit more. Whereas Americans, and perhaps it's because so many people speak English as a second language, that we are more sympathetic, have a sympathetic ear, where we can, kind of get the gist of what people are saying. Um,
Yeah, that is true. And I mean, there's a lot of even just like dialects, and sometimes you can't even
Yeah,
understand some people who are speaking English. So,
yeah. But like if the effort's there, you're encouraging, or
yeah, for
I
sure.
hope that people are. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you still speak, or are you still fluent in all those languages you just mentioned?
Of course not. No, 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 no. No, I had studied in Morocco in college and studied Arabic all throughout college, and French and Spanish. And now it's just something that's, fun to watch Netflix.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's
regrettably not there.
yeah. It's funny you say Morocco. I over quarantine, I had never cooked before because toured. I've toured for the last like 15 years of my life, so I just really haven't taken the time to learn to cook because I'm usually either on the road or whatever. So this time I decided, I was like, well, I have this time off and I need to eat and I want to make some delicious food. So I have come to find out that Moroccan cuisine is my favorite cuisine.
Oh, so good, tagines
Oh my
and
god, yeah.
harissa.
Yes. I actually made
Yeah.
a eggplant tagine, and it was
Mm.
unbelievable. I was so proud of myself.
We have to. Well, I'll have to send you one of those. The pots, the clay.
Yes. So how was Morocco? That's like high, high, high on my list of places to go.
Yeah, I, I. So at the time, I really loved it. I thought it was really fun. I lived with a family, and there was a girl my own age that I lived with. It was a mom and a daughter, and a son who was a little bit older and wasn't there a lot. But Hyatt, my homestay sister, and I became really close. We actually lived in a one bedroom apartment, like a one room apartment, and we all shared a bed. And so Hyatt and I would talk really late into the night every day, every night. And it was just really, I think that connection was super special. Like getting to meet someone my same age. She was also in college going for Muslim fashion design. She was very fashionable. I was not. Um, I don't know. And I still talk to her. Um, and I still write letters. So that was really special.
That's so
But
awesome.
yeah, Morocco, I loved it. And in retrospect, there were a lot of parts that were hard though, too. Um, I think being like a young woman there wasn't the easiest. I would say sexual harassment was like, you know, every day in your face. And so that you just get to ignore it. And then you don't realize how bad it is until you've left.
Wow.
Um, and but yeah, I mean, again, like the people that I met in the community that I made was so welcoming. But day to day was just a bit harder than navigating around Kisii, Kenya,
Yeah.
by
I
far.
hadn't even thought about that, but wow, yeah. So how old were you when you were there?
I was 20,
Oh, okay.
so I'd already been to Kenya, so it wasn't as I think traveling internationally and putting myself out of my comfort zone. I was already used to was already used to that. Like if someone offers you something to eat, of course you eat it,
Right.
right?
Right, right, right.
um, uh, yeah, like we didn't have a bathroom in our apartment, so we would go to the local hammam and like, of course I would. Like, what else would I do? Like, there's not even time to feel, I guess, embarrassed or uncomfortable because you just have to go with it
Right.
because that's your new situation. And having been in Kenya before that, I think it was better prepared and more game. And so I hit the ground running a bit faster. But yeah, it was fun. It was challenging, but it was fun.
Man, I love at such a young age you went to so many different just so different places. So I have this question on there. I didn't send it to you, but since we're on the topic of travel, I always love talking about travel because it's my favorite thing to do in the world. So, out of everywhere in the world that you've been, where is your favorite place you've been so far?
I mean, I'll always say Kenya just because of the people.
Yeah.
And we've been to Indonesia, Norway a bunch, and Europe, and Zimbabwe and Southern Africa. But I have to say, and doesn't that make me sound like I'm just killing the planet to say that? But like, I have to say that like Kenya is just really a special place, and probably because I know so many people there at this point. But it has diversity. A diversity of people, amazing nature. If you're diversity of landscape, it has a desert, forest, beautiful ocean. It's the size of Texas, and yet has, I don't know how many, 26 different languages are spoken in addition to Swahili and English.
So incredible.
It's just this very vibrant place that, I've never experienced before.
That's so
and
cool.
then, yeah. And also a good cup of tea. Like, you need a good cup of tea every day.
I'm always drinking a
there you
nice
go.
cup of tea.
There you are, 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
I love it.
I have one I got in Estonia earlier in 2020. It's pretty
nice. What kind of tea is it?
It's like it's called Solar Fire, but it's got like little dried grapefruits, and like it's kind of cool. I bought it at a little tea shop in Tallinn when I was there, and
oh wow.
Yeah, it was really neat. It was really cool. So I mean, it's.
I
cool.
know. I think I followed that trip of yours. That's how I met you. I was like, "What are you guys doing? It looks so fun. You guys are crazy. You're going in January or whenever it was. It was so dark."
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I the top of my list of places I wanted to go to was the Arctic Circle, and there was the whole trip started on like the idea of going to there's an igloo hotel in northern Finland that I'd always wanted to go to. Me being the like, hey, let's just go next week person and not planning, obviously didn't realize that it's booked like years in advance, which doesn't work for my time frame in life. I'm not a very good plan it out. So anyway, we ended up finding a cabin in northern Finland, and it was right on the border of Norway. And yeah, it was a full-on surprise for my partner Lindsay, and she knew we were going we went to France and Germany, and then we flew up to the Arctic Circle. And when we landed, I was just like, we're in the Arctic Circle. And she was just like, I don't even know what is.
But I loved about that trip following it was that you guys liked, and then again, this was like 2 years ago, and I don't remember this, or maybe it was last year, but you loved eating Indian food, like frozen Indian food. You were like, we only have one of these Indian dinners left. And you're like eating Indian food in the Arctic Circle. And it was so it was like, this is the world.
Yeah. Well, I do love Indian food, but also eating vegetarian or vegan, it's one of the easiest ways all around the world that I have found to eat vegetarian, at least. So that fuels it. So yeah, it made it easy. But yeah, that was. It feels like it was 10 years ago after this year, but it was late 2019, early 2020. Crazy enough.
Oh my goodness.
So like 1 year ago, right about now, that was when this was happening. So it's I
don't know. These 2 weeks have felt like, we're like still in 2021.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So that leads me to another one of my favorite questions that I ask, and it's so obviously COVID restrictions aside, if I came to you and I had a plane ticket to anywhere in the world and I said, Kate, where are you going with this plane ticket? Where would you fly to?
I'd probably go somewhere I haven't been, but I don't know. I've never been to South America. So Argentina would be amazing.
Yeah, I would love to go down to South America. I had a trip planned that didn't work out because a tour. I was trying to go to Machu Picchu on a 7-day break between tours, and it didn't quite work out in my favor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's all right.
Well, this will be over hopefully in a year, maybe.
Yeah. I always like asking that question because I like to feel like in another life I'm Oprah and I can just hand out plane tickets to everywhere to all my friends.
I know. I know, right? Right. Well, I should work for the Kenyan Tourism Board because a plug for traveling to Kenya is that there's nonstop flights from JFK and they're very affordable.
Wow. How
They're
long
like
is the flight?
I think it's 15 hours, 14 hours.
Okay.
It's not that bad though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
better than a transfer. But I don't think I've ever spent more than $900 on a round trip ticket.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I love when I was booking all my travel, it was super funny because people were like, "Damn, dude, you got to be spending so much money," and I was like, "You just got to look for it. You got to put a little effort into it. Don't buy that first ticket. Just look,
Yeah.
and you're able to find deals. You know, I mean, we flew all the way around, and I like typically I'll just book one ways. I'll book from like Nashville to New York, then New York to Paris. So that's why we went to Paris because it was like
Yeah.
$120 to go to Paris on a flight that we found with a newer airline. And I was like, yeah, why not? We'll try it.
I know. I just hope that I like don't get older. Like I keep staying where I'm just like, yeah, I don't mind, taking a 30-hour flight. Yeah.
Right, right.
What happens when you get used to something nice? That's when you're like,
Yeah.
just don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't even go there. Yeah.
So, how when you're able to take I'm sorry, I forget your child's name.
Oh, Ames. Yeah.
Ames.
That's okay. Yeah.
How have you done? I'm sure not because of COVID stuff, but have you done any traveling with as a family so far?
We had when right after we had Ames, because so I'm living in Portland, Oregon now. Um, and my family was also works with me with the tea is in Pennsylvania. And so after Ames was born, 2 weeks in the beginning of August, there was kind of a lull in COVID. If you remember, like it wasn't where we are now.
Yeah.
And we flew back east, and that was fine. And then we got back to Portland 3 weeks later, and the wildfires started, and they were so crazy. Like the smoke rolled in.
Yeah. We were actually driving our van out there when it all like we were in Portland when they started and it was like we were going to go down the coast and I've always wanted to go to Crater Lake and so I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's roll. And
Yeah.
then it just was like, no, let's head back east. So we
Yeah, I know, right?
we just left and I mean, I still have photos. I was looking out the window or I was taking photos of myself and it was like me and then you couldn't see anything 10
It
feet
was,
past me.
I know, like even out our window, I mean, you couldn't see. And we live in an old house here, and I was home for 24 hours, and then I got back on a flight with Ames. And my partner, who's a doctor, stayed. He's in residency, had to stay. But Ames and I left 24 hours later, back on a flight back east,
Oof.
because I started reading about like his lung development and the smoke, and we didn't have a purifier, and I mean it was a really privileged thing to be like, we're out of here, and I feel a little funny doing that, but yeah, at the same, and then we flew to New Hampshire, and in New Hampshire you could see the wildfire haze
Wow.
from Oregon.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah, because we ended up in Boise for a while because we had some transmission troubles with our van. But yeah, you could totally see it. I mean, it was like you couldn't see anything in Boise because it even that far off. So I can't.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You could see it all the way there.
It was great. It was, you had like the worst air quality in the world, right? Like
Yeah.
pinpointed at our house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just been so much craziness happening in this last year.
I know. It's hard.
Wildfires.
It's hard to process it. And that's why having a strong cup of tea every day is the saving grace, it gives you
Totally.
like a moment of pause and fortitude. And I've gotten into the habit of having an afternoon tea, of taking that break and resetting and not just doom scrolling and
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I was living in Denmark, my friend, because I was still it was earlier on in my sobriety journey. And so I was like trying to figure out something besides water, because I have to drink a ton of water, obviously, just to keep my body good. But he was like, dude, every day when I get home from work, we'll sit down and let's like brew a nice cup of tea. And he's like, let's go to a tea shop and get some like really nice tea, and let's get some tea stuff, and like let's
Make an
make, yeah,
experience.
like
Yeah, an
every
event.
day when I get back,
Yeah.
let's hang out and like put everything away and let's just talk and we'll have tea. And so
That's lovely.
yeah, that's what started it. And then where I met my partner on a tour in 2019, this never happens either, but her department was the wardrobe department, and just the most wonderful humans on her team. And my merchandise stand was backstage, so they would just ring a bell into our radio, so you'd hear a bell ring, and that just meant it was tea time. So you would call in to Flo, who's this amazing French woman, and she'd just radio over and say, what kind of tea? And then she'd give you the options, you'd radio in, and we went for 20 minutes on load-in days, and we had tea time, and my partner Lindsay would read poetry, or we'd do like, we would just talk, and it was like, put your radios away, put your phones away, no talk of work, no talk of the gig, 20 minutes. Or, if we had to keep our radios on because it was a tour, so we were still working, but, it was like, unless it was directly like, we need you, it's like, take the time. And it was so nice. So I have a daily ritual of it. And that's why, like, when I'm recording these podcasts, doesn't matter what time it is. It could be 3 a.m. and I'm gonna have my cup of tea, because it's my just like good Zen moment.
Absolutely. Like the last cup of tea is always black teas on my nightstand.
Yeah, because I was never a coffee person either.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss.
I don't know. I was always that weird one. I always tried and just never liked it. So I was just.
Maybe Nick, you haven't had Kenyan coffee.
Hey, maybe I need to have some proper
There you
coffee
go.
from you,
There you go.
and then I'll
There
figure
you
it
go.
out.
Yeah.
I'm open to that. I will try it.
Well, I will say Kenyan coffee is naturally sweet. It has this like really sweet. A lot of people say, "Wow, you don't even need milk and sugar in this."
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I never liked the bitterness of it. I think that was my biggest drawback.
Yeah, I know. And don't use Starbucks as your base.
No, I would go to this place with my brother in Atlanta like years ago, and it was a place called Cafe Intermezzo, and it was this nice fancy place. And I always tried like his nice, because he likes really nice coffee. So I tried that, and then I tried other stuff, and it's not my thing.
Yeah.
I stick with tea.
I hear you.
But maybe Kenyan coffee.
I don't discriminate yet.
Maybe when I get down to Kenya at some point. I'll
Nick, you gotta go. I know.
I want to so badly. I want to see all of the world, but like, especially since like now talking with you and like just seeing the beauty that's coming out of it with your like with the tea and all that you're putting out in the world, it's definitely spiked my interest of getting down there. And just meeting those people too is like, that's my favorite thing about traveling, is the culture and like just the people that you meet, and the love and the kindness and the smiles and all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right? Like the most amazing trips I've been on are not, I mean, a lot of it is natural beauty, but most of it is the people that you meet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love obviously seeing beautiful stuff, but I love most of the time I come back just smiling from the people that I meet, and like this, I've had a couple of them on my podcast now already, because I was just like, I just want to talk to you. We met this woman in Estonia at a vegan restaurant, and so we sat and chatted for an hour, and it was just so lovely to just catch up and hear about life in a different country. I just think it's one thing I think that people struggle to comprehend is like, as we're sitting here speaking, I'm in Nashville, you're in Portland, and life in Kenya is still happening, no matter what time it is or where we're at in our lives. Like life is happening literally every other place in the world, which is such a cool thing, And some place
kind of comforting too, right? That it's like that you are also just a speck,
right?
And so it's not up to you, right? So it's like it will continue on
Yes.
without you.
Yeah. And
And hopefully with you making it better.
yes. Yeah,
But you're
definitely.
not on the hook. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, you don't know everything. That's a big one I think a lot of people need to realize. You don't have all the answers. You don't know everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know. And the more you get down the road, you realize that you really don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the simple little lessons too. Like even if you think you have all these like deep complex thoughts, then you just hear a simple little anecdote and you're like, "Wow, okay. That was more impressive than any big knowledge I have of just this, little blip that you wouldn't even think about, but then you just take the time and yeah, I love those. I love those little moments where you just get taken back. It's so cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
So neat. All right. I think I sent you these two questions, but I have two questions that I love to wrap up my chats. And the first one is, what would you want the world to know about you?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, in the context of what brought us together, the tea and Ajiri tea, and it's funny. It's like, at the end of I don't know if you've ever listened to How I Built This by Guy Raz.
Yeah.
He always asks, like, how much was it luck that got you to where you are? How much was it like your smarts and determination? And a lot of people say luck, and then some people say determination, and it usually ends in them being bought out by some multinational. but but like I think that the luck question, or at least when it pertains to me and starting a Tea, like I mean, it was luck, but I would say to people also looking like of how we did this, it was phenomenal privilege, right? It was, I went to college and my parents paid for it. My parents gave us a small loan to start this. I was okay not making a lot of money for a lot of years and not having health insurance. Like, I think that there's like this luck that or privilege that living in the United States, having access to this market, and coming from an economic background such as myself that has afforded me to do this, and that shouldn't be overlooked, right? Because I think a lot of people are like, it's so cool, like you started a tea company, or like, I've always wanted to do that, and it is so cool and it is so fun, and I'm so fortunate. But I think that we all sometimes overlook the inherent privilege that allows people to start and do these things.
Right.
And so I think that's one thing that I want people to know, because we should use that privilege to then establish companies that work to level the playing field globally, right?
Yeah.
And there's no reason that not everyone should benefit on the path of a product, from the farmers to the community, and to people here in the U.S. who are enjoying the tea. So, that kind of youthful idealism, I think, has stayed really strong within Sarah and myself. And the older we get, I would say we're still idealistic, and we're not as naive, and we're like exactly what you're saying. We're starting to realize that we don't know a lot.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that's that kind of luck question, and then also the hard work that has gone into it in 10 years. We aren't so big. We're still shipping out online orders ourselves and packing up orders and packing up pallets and staying up till 2 a.m. to do these things. Like we're not so huge. There's only 3 of us here in the US working to make this all happen.
Wow.
But yeah, hopefully someday we'll get big, but until then, we're pretty fortunate to work with the people that we work with.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's beautiful to put it that way of like, yes, there is luck. Yes, there is massive amounts of hard work, and you're not discrediting that. But like, for sure, the privilege of being where we're from and all of what that brings to be able to use that, and like you said, to level the playing field, to give back.
Yeah.
I think that's so
There's always
important.
like this mystery around how people have started companies. And I want that mystery to be gone, like to be a more open conversation around like how much money did it take to start this? Right? Like how exactly did you do this? Because gosh, if we had known this.
Right.
And also we had a lot of help along the way. So much help along the way from food companies and people in the industry, and we've had a ton of help that we hope to keep, paying it forward.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's so beautiful. And like I said, that first second that I saw the box, I was just like, oh, this is amazing. Which when I post it, I'll at least put it on my Instagram. I'll take a picture of. We still have a tea box in the van, so I'll at least put that up so I can at least show whoever
Yeah,
sees it on there. But then I read
thanks.
about it, and it was just like, it's such a beautiful. I don't know if you would say mission, but it's such a beautiful thing that you're doing to give back. And I think that I love that. I love when everybody lends in to help out.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that what's cool about this is that like kind of creating a culture within our company in Kenya. And our foundation, our kids are graduating now from university, and they have all asked, how can I help? How can I give back? Well, one of our students became a doctor, and she gave all of our younger students her cell phone number. And like, if you're ever sick, and I was like, Phanisha, do you really want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to give everyone your cell phone number, but um, our students are maybe not in a position to help people financially, but they are definitely supporting one another and our younger students. So the cycle is continuing, and we just kind of got a ball rolling, and it's cool to see kids, become. We call it part of the Ajiri family. This is not something that I made up. This is what our kids call themselves. Not trying to like push our brand on them at all, but they're like, no, they're part of the Ajiri family. Like, you can't use Ajiri as your last name.
Yeah.
You have to use your own last name on your paper. But they're proud to I guess be associated with fellow students and our staff, and I think it's a testament to how much they care about each other.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. That's such a cool
Yeah,
story. And the fact that again that you've put so much time into this, that you're seeing that the evolution of where your kids go with what you're giving them.
yeah,
That's so
yeah.
beautiful.
It's so neat to see.
So beautiful. All right. And if you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
Gosh, so many things at this exact moment, but
Yeah,
right
it's a
in
tough
this
one
like
at this.
world. But politics aside, and like I guess big issues aside, because really, who's going to listen to that, right?
Yeah.
But and the environment aside, because that's just also big. I think one thing that I really learned, having worked in Kenya in different culture and also having run a small business, is the ability to just like take a step back from it, like relax. We have a driver in Kenya, he owns a car, and he drives us to Kisii, and then we have this big minivan that we can help shuttle people around with. Washira, and we've been friends with him for the past 10 years. He's always like, hey, relax, like better, what does he say? Better late in this life than early to the next.
Yeah.
Like, just, it will work itself out. And he has, been an ear to all of our trials and tribulations, and just, relax. It'll be sorted, and even if it's not, something else will happen, And this problem today is not so big as the problem that might be around the corner. So just relax. And, you know, lots of tea helps you do that too.
Yes.
A friendly ear. And in the times of COVID, to call a friend, like that human connection. But like when I'm super stressed, I always just hear Washira in my ear being like, hey, like, relax.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's I think that's one thing, hopefully, that people are finding a silver lining with this time is, you know, like taking the time. You know, we've all been gifted that gift of time that, you know, in normal life is just flying, and we're all doing a bazillion things all at once and got to get here and do this and whatever, you know. So that's one thing I've really enjoyed is like, we got time, you know. Usually it's like, oh, I don't have time to do that. Now it's like, okay, I got nothing but time, so let's do it. You know, take the time.
Isn't that wonderful?
And chill, you know. So I like that. I always, it brings me to another something that I've taken on as kind of like a personal motto, and it came from a song that I heard in 2006. But then when my sobriety journey started, very quick into that, I was told like 28 months ago that they didn't know if I had another night to live because I had drank myself to death almost. And so I was thinking of this song lyric, and it was just, snails see the benefit, the beauty in every inch. And it just spoke to me even in 2006, but like, so it came crystal clear in 2018 when it was like, okay, dude, you were told at 33 you might not live. So fall in love with life. Take every single inch and find the beauty in it. And I just love, like, because you can picture a little snail just kind of cruising along.
Absolutely. And what a great expression.
Yeah. And so it's stuck with me a lot. I actually, on my 1 year sobriety, I got a snail tattoo because of it.
That was gonna be my next question. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was that, you know, it was a massively special day to me. And it you know, I truly did find that, where it was just like, take the time for the little stuff in life, you know, really truly enjoy and dig in with the people that you get to spend life with. You know, your life will be enriched, especially with the humans that you're meeting in Kenya. And even if you're not going to Kenya, wherever you're going, you know, even
this wonderful community here.
Yeah.
Speaking with you, I mean, it just grows.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, like that was why I wanted to start this, because I was just like, we're all beautifully human. You know, everybody's story is worthy. Everyone's story is powerful and beautiful. You know, I get the question or the answer so many times when I ask to do this. They're like, me? And I'm like, yeah, tell your story. It
was really fun looking through your podcast. I can't wait to, now I have, you know, so much walking time with Ames here. I'm just gonna plug it in.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's great. And you know, it's super enriching for me. You know, it's like I said, with this time, I was like, well, I want to tell stories and talk to people. So it's been beautiful to connect. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, Nick, thank you. You have a great radio voice here.
Thank you.
Well, Nick, really nice talking to you.
Nice to talk to you.
I'll connect with you again.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me know once this COVID is over, you know, what your travel plans are like.
Definitely. I will.
If you need any recommendations to get on over to Kenya, because I think that you have the right attitude to go to travel there. I think some people are looking for maybe more of a safari or a kind of a different experience, but one close enough to home and their comfort level. And I just feel like you and Lindsay would just dive right in. And
yeah, I would. I
don't know what I'm trying to say. I think you know what I'm trying to say without being mean, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't wait for restrictions to go away.
Yeah.
And so we can get
Yeah.
back
Well,
to,
stay
to roaming
healthy.
around. Yeah, I mean, I'm high risk too with my liver, so I have to be very careful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Seriously, stay healthy.
you as
All
well.
right.
And this was so much fun. I really
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank you,
you.
Nick. Please say hi to Lindsay for me. I've never met her, but I've seen her.
Yeah.
I've seen her.
All right. Well, have a beautiful rest of your night.
All right. Good
All
night.
right. See you. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Wanderlust Moon Duo. Peace signs up.